Welcome to EE203 session 1. Today's session is going to be a loose recap of an informal recap of different concepts related to circuit theory and various network theorems. The aim is to get some hands-on experience with solving circuits. So as we progress through the course later on, you will not get plagued by basic doubts. Let me call this as the way we will go about it today is we will take some simple examples, and as we work them out, we'll see what theories or laws can be used. To start with, you have to make sure that you understand that the elements that we have are power sources, which are batteries. You can have DC power sources, AC power sources, and we'll come to AC later on. And similarly, you can have the current sources, which are your ammeters, current sources, and we are going to deal with linear elements such as resistors and capacitors and inductors. Now, when you are working with a voltage source, the important point to keep in mind is that current is driven due to a difference of potentials. When I say that the battery has 5 volts, it means that the positive terminal of the battery is at 5 volts with respect to the negative terminal. When I have a resistor in the circuit, then what will happen is, say the resistor is 5 ohms, then there will be a current flowing into the circuit because the positive terminal has now been connected to the negative terminal through a resistor. So the resistor is offering a path and current is flowing, and the current I is 1 ampere in this case because it's 5 volts over 5 ohms. It's 1 ampere. The potential of the resistor, so if I have some value VA over here and VB over here, then VAB is VA minus VB, that's 5 volts. So the entire energy which is given out with the battery is being dissipated across this resistor. This is why you should never have a short circuit across a battery, because if the battery is not able to dissipate energy in the resistor, then the energy of that's given out from the positive terminal will directly go into the negative terminal, and the battery will end up getting heated up, and then your battery can explode. So you have to ensure that there is a resistor which takes up this energy of the battery. Okay. Now in the same circuit, supposing I were to take the 5 volt battery and then have say 2 resistors. Now it's the same one as before. I'll now just split it into 2 ohms and 3 ohms, and this is still my 5 volt battery. Then what you can expect is that the voltage will drop in proportion to the size of the resistors. So there will be a 2 volt drop across the 2 ohm resistor. So let's call this as VA. There's VB in between, and there's VC. So VAB is going to be 2 volts and VBC will be 3 volts. Okay, because the total resistance is 5 ohms, 5 volts is dropping across it, and it's split in the ratio of 2 volts and 3 volts in proportion to the resistance. Now again, VAC is 5 volts because you can add up the voltage drops in series, and therefore VAC is equal to VAB plus VBC. I know this is really elementary stuff, but we are just doing it so that later on, as you're doing larger circuits, you will not get simple doubts. If supposing I were to put VB is equal to 0, that means if I connect a ground terminal, so I'm enforcing that VB is equal to 0, right? Now, what is the potential of VA and VC? What are the values of VA and VC and VB? I've set VB is equal to 0 by grounding it. Let me just call it as ground. And now I know that with respect to VB, I know VAB is 2 volts. This implies VA is equal to 2 volts because VB, since VB equal to 0. What about VBC? VBC is 3 volts. Remember, the battery is having a 5 volt between its positive and negative terminal, and since the battery is connected through the resistors, so the entire 5 volts is dropping across this loop, okay? And therefore, with respect to the VB, VC is going to be at minus 3 volts. Right? For the same reason, since VB is 0. So when you are, taking absolute voltages in a circuit, it has to be with respect to something. Current is driven by potential difference. Okay, I'll write it on top here. Potential difference drives current. So this is the important thing to keep in mind. The value of VA is 5 volts with respect to VC. The value of VA with respect to VB is 2 volts. The value of VB with respect to VC is 3 volts. Okay, so VBC is 3 volts. That means VB is 3 volts with respect to VC. But the actual value of VB is 0. So remember that. VBC is a relative value. What is the difference between VB and VC? Whereas the absolute value of VB is 0. That means the absolute value of VC is minus 3. Okay, and the absolute value of VA is 2 volts in this configuration. Now, if this ground were not to be there, then it would have been a different case, right? Because now you cannot tell what is the absolute value of VA, VB, or VC. All you can tell is that VA is at 5 volts with respect to VC, and VA is at 2 volts with respect to VB. Eventually, whatever is the current flowing in this circuit is driven by the 5 volt battery, and that's what is causing things to happen. Now, if this circuit were say to be connected in a manner that I have another battery here, say 10 volts, and this is connected to ground. The fact that this 10 volt battery on one end is connected to ground and the other end, it's badly drawn, so let me redraw it. Let's give it a fresh color. Okay, so I have this 10 volt battery that is now connected to this entire circuit. And what is going to be the value of VA, VB, and VC now? Well, we know that the flow of current is happening from the 5 volt battery. You see, this 10 volt battery is actually not contributing to any current because there is no path closing the 10 volt battery. Let's use the pointer. So the flow of current is going from the positive terminal to the negative terminal of the 5 volt battery. If you consider the 10 volt battery, then what you see is the positive terminal is connected to the circuit, negative terminal is connected to ground, but there is no connection between this to the negative terminal. So actually there is no current flowing in the system. Therefore, there is no potential drop due to the 10 volt battery occurring across this circuit. I could say that overall VA is equal to 5 volts plus 10 volts, and call it as 15 volts, I could say that VB is 2 volts less than VA, so it could be at 13 volts, and VC could be at 10 volts because it's connected to 10 volts, right? So if I want to use this convention, I can say that VC is 10 volts now, VB is 13 volts, and VA is 15 volts. But this 13 volts, 15 volts, and 10 volts is with respect to ground. So if I were to connect this path from either A, B, or C to ground, then that would be the potential difference. But right now there is no connection to ground, so there is no effect of this 10 volt battery on the system. It uniformly increased the potential by 10 volts, but actually it does not make any practical difference because there is no path that connects between the negative terminal of the battery to the positive terminal of the battery. So this is actually a non-functional battery. And the point is, when you see this kind of thing happening in your circuits, don't get confused by it. So in the end of the day, whether you say that, VAB is what is important. So whether VA is at 2 volts or VC is at minus 3 volts, or if you were to say that VA is at, 5 volts, VB is at 3 volts and VC is at 0, or 15, 13, 10, it doesn't matter. It's the relative difference that drives the current flow, and hence potential difference drives current. This is an important point to keep in mind. Another point that I made was that the elements R, C, and L are linear elements. And in the case of the resistor, in case of the capacitor and the inductor, it's a little more complicated. So I have to qualify that statement properly. With a resistor, it is straightforward linear. So let's start with the resistor networks. And what do we mean by linear? The change across the resistor. So if I were to apply a voltage V across the resistor R, then the current I is V over R. Okay. And if I change the voltage V, then the current I will change in proportion to R. Or in other words, I can say that R, the resistance of the resistor is V over I. So as I change the voltage, if I were to plot a graph and I take the IV characteristics, then it's going to be a straight line, okay, passing through the origin. So when there's no voltage, there's no current. This is a passive element. That's the second thing. The fact that I and V, when V is 0 and I is 0, so R is passive. The resistor does not generate any energy by itself, right? A battery is an active element. Because a battery gives out energy, resistor is passive and it is linear. And therefore, the resistor follows superposition theorem. The slope of the line over here is R, that's the resistance. So slope. Actually, in this case, the slope is conductance. It's 1 by R since we have plotted I versus V. So it's Y by X. So I by V is 1 by R, and that is a constant number. The advantage of having something like this is that if I have, when I say that it follows superposition theorem, it means that if I have some response across this resistor, if I apply a voltage V1 across R, gives rise to a current I1. If I apply V2 across R, it gives rise to I2. So if I were to apply V1 plus V2 across R, that will give rise to I1 plus I2. Okay. So this is called superposition. So if I have two separate voltage sources in the circuit, different power sources, I can consider the effect of each of them separately across the resistor. On the other hand, if you were to consider a diode, right? When we talked about the diode in IC161, the diode is a nonlinear system because the IV characteristics of a diode, so a different color, is exponential. Okay, still hits 0, and we said this is V and I is equal to exponential of QV over KT. So we said that was V diode over VT minus 1. That was the expression for current across the. And if we say approximately, that's equal to exponential of V over Vt. Let's ignore the minus 1 for now. So if I have a current I1 due to a voltage V1, that's going to be exponential of V1 over Vt, and a different current I2 would be due to exponential of V2 over Vt. Now if I were to do I1 plus I2, that's going to be exponential of V1 over Vt plus exponential of V2 over Vt, and that is not equal to exponential of V1 plus V2 over Vt, right? Because this number is actually equal to exponential of V1 over Vt times exponential of V2 over Vt. So it does not follow the addition rule. In the case of a resistor, if I have a voltage V1, it gives I1, V2 gives I2. If I add V1 plus V2, then the current I get is I1 plus I2. In the case of a diode, that does not work. If I have I1, it's because the relationship is non-linear, it's exponential. So if I have a current I1 due to V1 and a current I2 due to V2, V1 and V2 are voltages across the diode, applied voltages, then I1 plus I2 is given by the sum of these two exponentials, and that is not equal to exponential of V1 plus V2 over Vt. So superposition is not met. So if I apply a voltage V1 plus V2, the current I'm getting is the product of these two, right? And let me write it out for you. So this is actually equal to I1 times I2. So I should have actually got I1 plus I2, and instead of getting I1 plus I2, I'm getting I1 times I2. So a diode is a non-linear element. Of course, we learnt in IC 161 that you can draw a slope, you can have the constant voltage model, constant voltage drop model, or piecewise linear model, which then lets you approximate this as a linear device. So in network theory, if you want to use a diode, you would have to replace the diode by a piecewise linear model. And then you can say that it has two different resistance values in two different regimes, R1 and R2. And then you can plug in R1 and R2 into the circuit and then evaluate it. And we had a word for this. We call this as the small signal model. So this is all about linearity. So we've discussed linearity and some a little bit of superposition. Okay. In the previous page, we discussed about just the idea of potential differences driving current, and that you have to be careful with the absolute value of battery voltages. They don't mean anything. A battery means something only if the positive and negative terminal are connected, which induces a current flow. So these are two simple points regarding these elements. So now what we'll do is we'll start taking some simple circuits and evaluating them, and we can then use that to recap whatever you learned in the past, maybe through high school, 12th class, or your IC 160 course, the various theorems and laws that you learned about circuit analysis. So instead of me writing one theorem after the next, we will just draw a circuit. Let's consider this. I just picked this from one of the textbooks. One of the assignment problems in one of the textbooks, and we'll just solve it out here. We have a current source of 4 amperes. Another current source of 5 amperes. And a bunch of resistors in between, which have values Okay. Now the question is, can you find out all the nodal voltages and currents? So what are the various things we've learned in the past? We've learned KCL, Kirchhoff's current law, Kirchhoff's voltage law. Maybe you've been exposed to nodal analysis, nodal and mesh analysis. Analysis in plural, with an S in between. And what else? You know, Thevenin and Norton theorem. So let's try out each of these. Okay, just take one example and we'll just do a quick recap of every one of these. Kirchhoff's current law, what does that tell us? It tells us the sum of currents entering a node. So here is a node, here is another node. So these are all the intersections, and the bottom is also a node, right? So let me call this as node A, B, C, and D. Now, do I really need a node C and D? No, because C and D are short circuited. There is just a wire drawn over here, but it doesn't mean anything. So it's just one common terminal. So I don't need two nodes over here. Okay, they are the same thing. And like I told you earlier, that the power is driven in a circuit due to the either an ammeter or a voltage source. And since I have one common terminal, I could even potentially call it as a ground terminal. Although the question does not say that there is a ground terminal, nothing precludes me from making this a common ground terminal. In a sense, I'm saying that node C is at 0 volts. It makes my analysis easier. It's not necessary that you have to do this, but it's just something to keep in mind. Sometimes if you see these complicated sources, or if you have to do analysis, you can always take one common node out and set it to 0. So we may or we may not use this. So let me, just erase it for now. If we want to use it, then we'll use it. Okay. So Kirchhoff's current law indicates that the sum of currents flowing into a node is going to be 0. So there is a current flowing here, a current flowing here, and a current flowing here, right? So there's a current going from the current source to node a current coming from node B to node A, and a current coming from node C to node A. The sum of currents at any node is equal to 0. This is coming from the conservation of charge. Or in other sense, you can say that whatever current flows in from various nodes has to flow out from another node. Okay. So let's erase this. And I could write Kirchhoff's current law as KCL is KCL given by sigma I, sum of currents. Instead of I, let's call it sigma J. Sigma J Ij is equal to 0 at any node at any node of a circuit. So what does this notation mean? Sigma is a summation, okay? And it's a summation going across a counter J. In this case, how many values of J are there for node A? So if I consider node A, then J goes from 1 to 3, okay? So one current is coming from, that's like, so let's write it out. So J goes from 1 to 3, that implies this sigma J Ij is equivalent of saying that it is the current flowing in from the 5 amperes. So I 5 ampere source plus I CA. Normally we don't write, in terms of nodes because we talk about voltages between nodes. But the point here is like current flowing from C to A, node C to node A, and there is a current flowing from node B to node A. Okay. So when I say J goes from 1 to 3, that means J has the values 1, 2, 3. So 1 corresponds to this, 2 corresponds to this, 3 corresponds to this. So sigma j ij is I 5 ampere plus ICA plus IBA, and that is equal to 0. Because sum of currents entering a node is 0. Kirchhoff's voltage law, on the other hand, tells you that the sum of voltages across a loop is 0. KVL indicates that if I have a drop across the, take any one loop or any mesh, or we can take this is easy. So if there is a current I flowing in the circuit, then what it means is 1 ohm into I plus 5 ohms into I plus 2 ohms times I. The sum of these is equal to 0. The sum of the voltage drops across a loop is going to be, across a mesh or a loop is going to be 0. So a loop is any closed path. This is a loop. This whole thing is a loop. This is also a loop. This is also a loop. This is also a loop. So you have many loops over here, but a mesh refers to a loop within which there is no other loop, right? So the smallest possible loop. So this is the smallest possible loop. Within this loop there is no other loop. So this is called a mesh. This is a mesh. This is also a mesh. So this is a circuit where you have how many loops and meshes? Let's count it. So we have, this. We'll write it down under KVL itself. So the circuit has 3 meshes and how many loops? This is a puzzle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess. But you can verify it yourself, and maybe 6 loops. So KVL is usually indicates that the sum of voltage drops across a loop is 0. When you do mesh analysis, like what we have written up here, then we'll actually form algebraic equations using individual meshes. Now, the main point here is the question is requiring you to find out what are the voltages at the different parts of the circuit. So I want to calculate VA, VB, and let's say I also want to calculate the currents in the circuit. So calculate IAB. So I would like you to, based on whatever you have read so far and whatever you remember, try to solve this problem. And then in the next class, we'll take up these various methods to solve this very same example. Okay, so maybe take 5-10 minutes to come with the answers, find out what is the voltage at point A, what's the voltage at point B, what is the current IAB, that is the current flowing through the 5 ohm resistor, what is the current, various other currents in the circuit, and let's see what answers you get. And then let's try it out in the next class. Okay, thank you.